Bristol Community College, Mathematics with Dan Avedikian, Math 060, Topics in Developmental Mathematics, Section 2.10, Problem 31. This is Section 2.10, Problem 31. It says find the average of 1/2 and 3/4. So to find the average, what I want to do is add the 1/2 and the 3/4 together and divide that result by 2. So now to add 1/2 and 3/4, I have to write them so that they have the same denominator. I need a common denominator. So the 1/2, let me write that as 2/4, and I'll leave the 3/4 the way it is, and a 2 underneath. So how did I change that 1/2 to 2/4? It is an equivalent fraction. The 2/4 will reduce back to 1/2. I can see it pretty easily, but if you don't, first look at the denominators. I changed the denominator of 2 to a 4, and I did that by multiplying. I multiplied 2 times 2 is 4, so the numerator of 1 times the same value of 2. 1 times 2 gave me the 2. And again, to add the fractions, I need a common denominator. So 4 worked pretty well. And the 3/4, if the 4 got to stay, the 3 also gets to stay. So now I can add those fractions. There's still a divide by 2 underneath to find the average. Keep my common denominator of 4 and combine the numerators. 2 plus 3 more is 5. So what I have is 5/4 divided by 2. Well, the divide by 2, to make this work in a more of a way that you would recognize, let me do 5/4 divided by 2 over 1. Again, that 2 I wrote as a fraction by just putting a 1 under it. Any whole number can be written as a fraction by putting a 1 under it. Now, why would I want to do that? It seems that whole numbers typically are more easy to deal with than fractions. Well, when you have a division that involves a fraction, what you're supposed to do is invert the bottom fraction and multiply times the top fraction. Well, the bottom number wasn't a fraction. How would I invert it? Well, by writing the 2 as a 2 over 1, now it's clear how I would invert it. So I leave the top of 5/4, and it becomes times the inverse of 2 over 1. So to invert it, I bring the 1 to the top and push the 2 to the bottom. So I have 5/4 times 1 over 2. And again, to multiply fractions, I don't need a common denominator or anything. I just multiply top times top. 5 times 1 is 5. Bottom times bottom, 4 times 2 is 8. So the average of 1/2 and 3/4 is 5/8.